Yes, we are live now.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I, Lakshmi Sen Gupta, President of AIWC Regent Park Constituent Branch, welcome you all to the webinar. Today's webinar, the topic is on pandemic parenting, which is one of the most important issues under the current scenario. We are looking forward to an interesting session with our distinguished speakers, along with the moderator, Mrs. Surahita Mazumdar. Now, let me introduce you all to her. She's a mother of two, an IPA lawyer, plus a philanthropist. She has worked with us in arranging some of the previous webinars in the past. And when approached, she gladly agreed to host today's one. Now, I must tell you all, our secretary, Mrs. Madhumita Mazumdar, is also with us, but unfortunately, she's unable to speak because she's got a very bad sore throat. Thank you. Over to you, Surahita.
Ma'am, you're mute. Please unmute yourself.
Me?
No, it's SRM.
Thanks, Saurav. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Sengupta, for the introduction. I think most of us are aware of AIWC and what you all do. And of course, most of us support what you do. Of course, I mean, apart from those who may not know about you. So, as we all know, AIWC is an organization dedicated to the upliftment and betterment of women and children. We must accept the fact that the pandemic hasn't shown any signs of leaving anytime soon. And therefore, things still look uncertain even after 15 months of when it actually set in. So as a woman, as a mother of two very young kids, and a professional who has to step out almost every day for work, I at least have many questions in my mind almost every day. And I thought this would be, the best opportunity to grab, and to kind of extract things from the eminent panelists. We have Dr. Sarkar here, we have Hemanti, they are day in and out dealing with such relevant issues. So on this note, I would like to introduce the panelists. Let me start with Dr. Ognimita Giri Sarkar. She, some of you, of course, in Calcutta would know her. She's a well-known name who specializes in pediatrics. Dr. Giri Sarkar has about 25 years of experience, who's a consultant pediatrician in charge of lactation and pediatric breast health clinic, and also the cancer rehabilitation clinic at the Institute of Child Health in Kolkata. She's the founder of Disha for Cancer. She's a recipient of European Breast Cancer Fellowship twice. She's also known for her philanthropic activities outside her practice. I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to get a yes instantly from her, because when we explained it is for AIWC, she never even asked us what the questions are or what the topic would be. She just said yes. So thank you, Dr. Sarkar, for joining us.
Thank you, Shurita.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
Then we move to the next panelist, Ms. Hemanti Mangal. She's a very popular therapist in Delhi, although very young, but she's already made a place for herself. So to give a brief background about her, she's a child psychologist and also an arts-based therapy practitioner. Mental health is her passion, and she believes in simple yet creative ways to bring about positive emotional, social, and cognitive changes in children and their families. She has got immense exposure with children with special needs for nearly 10 years. She's the director and founder of Healing Nest Foundation. This organization primarily caters to the mental health needs of children and adolescents. They are based in New Delhi. Welcome, Hemanti. Moving to the next panelist, we have a mother of a teenager, Mrs. Sanchari Basu. Sanchari severed the umbilical cord with the corporate world and turned a homemaker a decade back, but occasionally freelances as an HR specialist. Armed with a master's in social welfare, a PGD in human resources from the University of Vadodara, Sanchari worked for more than a decade in some of the most respectable organizations like Tata Consultancy Services and Larsen Toubro. She was also very briefly associated with reputed Administrative Staff College of India, Hyderabad. Sanchari grew up in a small town, Happy Girl, in the quaint township of Indian Oil Corporation in Vadodara. She loves to paint, cook, travel, read, listen to music, garden, and learn to speak new languages. Sanchari, I believe those paintings behind you are yours. So, obviously they are great. So then we move to our next panelist, Miss Pallavi Sengupta, a working parent. Pallavi was born and brought up in Kolkata. She completed her graduation from Jadavpur University and post her MBA moved to Mumbai to start her professional career with Tata Communications. She is an HR professional with 15 years of experience. She has spent a decade working with the Tata Group and Godrej at various leadership positions. Currently, she is the HR head of Hector Beverages, better known as Paperboat Juices. You get these juices for free at home? I'm curious.
Yeah, almost.
Oh, that's good. So now she's settled in Bangalore and is a mother of two. Her son Parth is 8 and daughter Anika is 1.5 years old. Pallavi was also a national level badminton player, represented her state, university and school in various national competitions. She's a bronze medalist from National Games 2002 and a university blue, captaining her university and school at different national competitions. In her free time, she enjoys cooking and traveling. So, welcome you all. You're welcome. So, let's get on the questions. Should we start with Doctor? So, Doctor, what are your thoughts on a probable third wave and its impact on children, considering that everyone's concerned about kids this time?
Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank Mrs. Madhumita Mojumdar and Shurita and Shiprade for inviting me. I would like to thank Lakshmi Sengupta, President of AIWC, and I would like to thank all the members and guests present today. Regarding third wave, we are all very scared that the third wave is upcoming and a new strain has arrived, that is the Delta Plus. One thing we should remember that during the first and second wave, we have seen that 4 to 5% children were affected and they had mild to moderate symptoms and mostly they had no symptoms. Now, when the third wave is about to come and the children are stuck at home, how they will get the virus? So they will get the virus from the adult person and the parents who are stepping out in the outside world. They are working, they are going to the office, and if they are not careful, they can bring back the virus and transmit it to their children. So the parents must be very careful and maintain all the etiquettes of pandemic. Now, another thing I should say that since the vaccine hasn't arrived and the kids are not vaccinated, so we are very much scared that this section is left unvaccinated, and the third wave, if at all comes, it can hit the children only. We have seen that sero survey done in Maharashtra, and it shows that there is more than 50% of the children, they are carrying the antibody. If a sero survey is done throughout India, I expect the same picture because most of the children are asymptomatic and we haven't tested them. So if they are carrying the antibody, that means they have some protection against the third wave, and this antibody have seen to be persisting in the blood for about 104 days minimum to 6 to 8 months. So if the third wave comes within this period of time, I think they will be protected. Again, I will tell the mothers or the parents not to get scared. Please kindly maintain the pandemic etiquette and take care of your children. And when you come back home, please maintain the hygiene, clean yourself, because it's not possible to maintain social distance from your child. So please maintain the pandemic etiquette, and that will save your child. So don't worry, but be careful.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your insights. Hemanti, on this note, would you like to add to this or share your views with us?
First of all, thank you everyone to have me here. It's a great opportunity to share my insight about the same. So what I wanted to share, of course, medically, the vaccination is not there and we do not have any very, a stable plan for what to do with children. But I kind of feel here is when we say that the third wave is coming and the children will be impacted more, I always feel that they have already been impacted in the first and the second wave. So if we see it in that way, that third wave is medically, yes, we are worried that what's going to happen, but if we see overall developmentally, they are already being impacted in the first and second wave, which we are now talking about. What do we do about the children? And this has happened and that has happened. And, the screen time has increased and the relationships have gone here. But this was not talked about in the first and the second wave. In the third, now we are talking about how children are going to affect it. But I feel that they're already affected. And I think that knowing that they're already affected, we need to, of course, vaccination and taking safety and all of this is very, very, very important. But along with it, we also need to understand that what has been affected in them in the last two waves, which we are talking about now. So I think through this, we are going to understand this impact a little more from everyone all the panelists who are here. So, yeah.
Doctor, do we have any updates on the vaccines for kids?
Yes, there are several ongoing trials throughout the world. In our country, in India, the two trials are now being conducted. One is on Covaxin. The trial has started in the month of June. It was started with the children in the age group 12 to 18 years, followed by 6 to 12 years, and now they are having the trial on 2 to 5 years. The data will be arriving around September, and if emergency authorization is given, the vaccination can be started. Another vaccine is on trial, that is Zydus Cadila vaccine. It is ZyCoV-D, and this vaccine has started their trial, final phase trial, in the age group 12 to 18 years, and they are about to start the trial in the age group 6 to 12 years. So this data will also arrive soon, and we can get these two vaccines. One vaccine trial is cancelled, that is the Novavax, who was in collaboration with Serum India, Institute of India. They wanted to give trial on the children, but as they don't have any data on the adults, the ICMR and DCGI, they all have cancelled the trial. Next, there are two vaccines internationally. In USA, Pfizer and Moderna already started giving vaccination to children from 12 to 16 years, and they have started trial on 5 to 12 years, and they will start the next group in this week. That means between 2 to 5 years and 6 months to 2 years. Their data will be submitted in the first half of September, and if they get emergency authorization, the vaccine will start rolling. So we have hope. There are a lot of vaccines in the pipeline, and if we can vaccinate the children just before the third wave, yeah, we can save them. But still, I think the parents are the carriers, so be careful.
Thank you, doctor. And also on that note, we were recently reading about vaccinating pregnant women. What is your
yes. Yeah, pregnant and lactating mothers. Initially, both WHO and ICMR they told that there is a contraindication in vaccination. The pregnant and lactating mothers can't be vaccinated. But we have seen a pregnant mother suffering from COVID has a lot of complications, not only for herself, because if she suffers from severe illness, she can be in a ventilator, but the fetus in her womb also suffers a lot of damage. There can be a stillbirth, there can be premature rupture of membranes, there can be fetal distress, there can be preterm delivery, there can be low birth weight. So there are so many complications from the angle of the fetus. And regarding the breastfeeding mothers, if they are also positive, though they can also transmit the infection to their newborn baby. Now, as we have decided that we won't be vaccinating this group, but incidentally, unknowingly, some mothers, pregnant mothers, and some breastfeeding mothers got vaccinated. And when there was no trial on this group, so when they were examined and followed up, we found we have seen that the breast milk contains the antibody of the vaccine, and we have seen that the cord blood is also containing the antibodies. So WHO decided that as antibodies are being secreted in the breast milk, so this vaccine can be given permission for the lactating mothers. So they gave permission to the lactating mothers initially, and there was no permission for the pregnant women. But now we have, after balancing the two, the ill effects of the virus and the positive effects of the vaccine, ICMR has decided that the permission should be granted and the mothers should be vaccinated. And same decision was taken by WHO. So both in US and in our country, we have started vaccination of both the lactating mothers and the pregnant women.
Great. That was useful. Okay, now coming to the next topic, masks on children. Ma'am, what do you think should be? I think the other day I was reading that kids below the age of 5, they do not need masks when they step out. And then of course, generally we all know that any age group, they have to be masked the moment they step out. So what is your opinion?
Actually, during the first wave, WHO recommended no mask below 5 years, mask from 6 years to 11 years under supervision, and above 12 years, mask like adults. ICMR granted this and have given the permission, same permission this year during the second wave. Because why this permission is given? Because 0 to 5 years, we don't want the child to get, if the child is having suffocation or if the child is having any breathlessness problem, then the child cannot untie the mask on their own. But between the 6 to 11 years, we can explain the benefits of the mask, and if under supervision, the mask can easily be handled. And above 12 years, as they behave like adults, so they don't have any problem. So this permission, as declared by WHO, is now granted by ICMR also. But one thing I must mention, that in my clinic, during my clinical checkups and vaccination, and during checking the children, I have seen even 2 to 5 years children are carrying the mask very well. And once they are explained that you don't take out the mask, it's protecting you from the virus. Whenever I ask them that take out the mask, they do not cooperate with me. And if they even take out for few minutes, immediately they wear the mask again. So I encourage the children, because in our country, I know mothers are very careful. They take care of their children. And in this age group, children go out of the house only during checkup and vaccination. So I ask the mothers, you can put the mask on, but be very careful, because if they have any problem, it's difficult for them to express or take out the mask.
Right. Hemanti, are you here? Hemanti is here, or she got disconnected perhaps. Pallavi, what's the scene with you? Are these kids complying? I mean, the younger one, I'm sure, is too tiny, but what about the other one?
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you, Regent Park constituency, for having me here. Thanks to the President, Mrs. Sengupta, and the Secretary, Mrs. Mazumdar. Yes, Surita, like you said, my younger one is not yet there to understand the complexities of the pandemic. But of course, my son, who is 8 years old, to be honest, he's shown a lot of courage and a lot of adaptability. He has kind of adopted the current situation very, very positively. 15 months back, I remember last March when the lockdown started, for him it was like a summer vacation which started, and he was very excited that the summer vacation went beyond the 2 months. But initially, after a few days, he realized that he's not able to go out, step out and play with his friends, and that's when the whole situation changed at home. And locked up in the house was a first time experience for all of us. So for a kid of his age, I think it's a mixed feeling for them. While they get to spend a lot of time with the parents, which is something which they look forward to, which is otherwise not would have happened. But on the other side, they are missing out on the outdoor play and growing up, playing around outside. I would say.
So does he actually wear the mask when he steps out, or he
Yes,
protects?
yes. Actually, surprisingly, we sometimes underestimate these kids. They are extremely, mature, and they understand. And my son understand in detail what the pandemic can cause, and he's extremely careful with wearing masks whenever he steps out. He washing hands when he comes back home, and he actually counts 20 seconds to wash hands between the
wow.
fingers. Then he goes back and before touching his sister, he will go wash hands, sanitize himself, and often goes for a bath. So that way, I think that whole practice has somehow got instilled in today's kids.
I think it has a lot to do with parents at home. I mean, I would personally know a lot of people who are like, nothing will go wrong. It's okay. So therefore, that's where the problem starts from.
Yes.
I mean,
think-
I guess we've all been discussing about the second wave, why it happened and how it happened, and some of us blindly kind of blamed the government or other people around us, but we are the ones to be blamed. I mean,
I
we
know.
took it easy, and therefore the doctors are being punished. I
Yeah.
mean,
We have
so-
made our guards down, and that's how it has happened. But I think what has also worked, when you say about people following instructions, over communication has happened in the last 15 months everywhere. If you've seen people, whether you pick up the phone and there are instructions when you call someone, or on TV, which is a good thing. I think over communication, over emphasizing on the importance of maintaining hygiene has happened in the last 1.5 years, and which I appreciate. Whether it is online classes, or whether even at corporate, when we over communicate to our employees, we've done that because by nature we tend to forget and tend to not look at this small matters of keeping hygiene. But this over communication has helped a lot, I feel, in the last, say, 2-3 months, when people have really again gone back to lockdown because of the second wave coming back.
So how's the situation in Bangalore right now?
Bangalore, it's much better. I think the cases have dropped. In Karnataka, it's less than 2,000 now. I mean, we were in Bangalore, the cases had risen to a maximum of, I think, close to 20,000 a day at one point of time.
Yeah.
But now I think it's much more controlled, and vaccination is happening at full pace. I think the government is targeting the 60% of the population to get vaccinated in the next couple of months, and that's when they want to kind of open up. But keeping our fingers crossed for the third wave. But having said that, we still have restrictions. We are not open. We are still under lockdown, where still restrictions are there on free movement.
Thank you, Pallavi. Is Hemanti back? She was having some internet problems. She messaged me. I think she will take longer. Mrs. Basu, any take on this? What's the mask scene at home? I'm sure he's grown up, but anything you would want to add to the discussion?
First of all, thank you very much, organizers, for having me over. And yes, mask. My teenager, he's 16, but he's very, very careful, and he is insistent on having the mask on, even if somebody rings the bell at home. So it's that he's that careful, and he's also been telling us that don't open the door without the mask. when the maid servant is there, he makes it a point to put on. He's following all the COVID protocols, washing hands. I don't think he does the 20-second thing, but he is definitely washing his hands many times during the day. So that's how it is.
Which is a good thing. Hemanti, you're back. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry.
So we were discussing about the masking policy, or what is being followed at home and with these kids of different ages. So how are you handling this when people visit you at the institute or the clinic?
So we have just opened the institute, say, a month back. So basically, we work with children with different needs, and so providing therapy is as essential as anything else. So we started with very one-to-one kind of a session where a child is coming and meeting the therapist, and they are having one-to-one interaction. Also trying to continue using mask and continue using hand sanitizers. But what we have realized is, as an adult, we are taking more precautions than the children, because it's just even if you teach a child, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, that you have to put your mask up all the time, it's impossible, because they're not going to do it. After, say, half an hour, 40 minutes, the mask will be down. So for us, as an adult, we are taking more precautions. We are putting our masks up. We are using and sanitizing the place again and again. Our team is taking extra precaution when they're coming here. We are taking extra precaution. But from the child's point of view, if a child is coming in, we know that it's just it's expecting too much for them to wear throughout 1.5 hours or 2 hours. The mask is up, because I have children coming to me as small as 2 years, 3 years, which is very, very difficult. They can't do it. It's impossible to even think in that line. But yes, even even in this note, I also feel that children, when they are even I kind of try to take the children who are coming here, I try to not mix them together. So that is one thing. So one thing which I think we all have to take care is that children not meeting children meeting another child. Wherever you are meeting, the adults should take the responsibility of where the child is going, which place I'm taking my child to. If I am meeting a friend, how do you know your friend very well? How are they moving around? If not essential, don't go. But yes, as an adult, we are taking more precaution of where you want to take the child, rather than forcing them to mask up, which is difficult.
Thank you, Hemanti. Yeah. So going back to Sanchari again. Now, I wanted to know, did you see any behavioral changes in the child, or you think in that age group, did you come across any such news where there's been a lot of mental stress or change in the behavioral pattern?
Yes, definitely, because the child is confined into the home, and more specifically into certain areas of the home, like maybe his or her own room, and maybe the dining area, the living area. They don't tend to come so much into the parents' bedrooms or go to other parts of the house. So what is happening is, it's a lot of emotional and mental stress, because there's no physical activity at all. They are studying, all the classes are happening online, their games are happening online, they are playing online, and whatever little interaction they have with friends or the outside world is only through the internet. So he's completely stuck to that one room, say his table chair, which is, it's very stressful also. So at times, then they want to get out of the house. At least my son, he wants to go out, so he gets very frustrated, and then he takes me out, though he understands that there's a lockdown and you can't go out. But he's like, now I don't like at home. I want to go out. And then it gives a lot of mental stress. He gets extremely agitated. We can make out the way he starts, the decibels go up in the house, which never used to happen otherwise, because he was so busy doing so many activities which have completely stopped. Also the physical part of it. There's no physical activity. So there's definitely, a stress on the body, the obesity that is setting in. If we tell him do some exercise, what exercise? Then I have to sit in the house, or I keep walking in the lobby of the home, which is not a very exciting thing.
It's unfortunate, but that's how things are right now. Pallavi, you would like to add something? Perspectives of an 8-year-old, what you observed during these times?
See, for an 8-year-old, it's a little different than from somebody maybe a little in the adolescent age. So for my son or his age group, I think they are much more. So specifically with my son, I think what we did was we made a daily timetable for him, and where he had a fixed time for. We tried to, put a fixed time for screen time, and then sleeping time, and eating, and then playing and other stuff. So that way what happened was that he got engaged to different activities. So for the but what he was missing was, of course, me going out and playing with his friends, and the whole energy that he ideally would have spent outside started kind of happening inside the house. And that was very, very different for us, because spending being working parents and being out of house all and getting to see our children few hours a day, we were not experiencing a whole day of high energy kind of an environment. So that is something which happened. But of course, apart from that, I think managing their routine was a task for both of us.
Hemanti, now we want your insights on this. This is your specialization.
Yeah, so I would start, I would give you a little my input on how it has impacted the development of a child. So if I have just grouped it in a way so that it's helpful. So what do we see in a child? How do we know that they're impacted or they're affected in a way? Is so we talk, when we talk about children, we talk about their, first is that their body. A very young child between 0 to 2 years will be, their body is talking, they don't have the language, but their body is talking. So we see an infant when he's cranky or he's crying, means that I need my mother. Or if I'm hungry, I'm crying. So their body is doing the talking. So for a very young child, we don't know if how the COVID is impacting between 0 to 2 years, because the child is not talking. But we have to be, as an adults, be aware of their body. How is their facial expression? How is their body responding? How is their rhythm? Are they sleeping? Are they being clingy too much? These are the signs which we have to hold on to a child who's not verbal. Because they are not going to say, even if you ask me what happened, kya hua? They are not going to answer that, that it's COVID and I'm not feeling okay, I'm bored. No, but they're going to show different signs, which is mostly we see is the body and the facial for, between this age group, between 0 to 2 years. 2 years and above, when the language has developed, but it is not matching with the feelings they have. As an adult, we are also, if somebody asks me, how are you feeling? I'm not able to say how am I feeling, right now. I can't say it in words. So even between 3 to 5 years, the child, even if they are verbal, they are not able to express exactly how am I feeling when I'm stuck at home, or when I don't have friends, when I'm not going to school, my routine is not there, I'm not meeting my friends. I'm not allowed to go out and play. So I don't know what to say then. So there we see, how do we see it? There is a little bit of irritability, there will be anger, there will be fussiness in food, there will be meltdowns, there will be certain weird emotions which are coming, which we would have not seen as an adult earlier. So sometimes you would see a child would say that, no, I don't want to eat. Suddenly there will be fussiness of food, which is another way of saying that I'm distressed, but I can't use the word distressed. I am doing these kind of things. So we as an adult have to be very observant according to the age the child is in. Then when we move further between 6 and 8 years, children are much more verbal and they're able to perceive the information happening around. So when we know that the child is able to perceive what's happening around, but they don't have answers for it. So if a child comes to me and asks, when is my school opening? I don't have an answer. When can I go and meet my friends? I don't have an answer. Everything is unpredictability. So now imagine a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old not having those answers. Earlier, these children used to look up to their teachers and parents for all answers. That, oh, I will go to my teacher and she will give me an answer. I'll go to my mother, she knows the answer. But we don't have answers. So there is so much of confusion. There is so much of unpredictability. And how are we going to see that they are affected by it? Is that there will be inattention. There will be more restlessness. Again, there will be fussiness in food. There will be a bit of anxiety. There will be loneliness. They would want to sometimes be on the screen for a longer time because that is making them comfortable. So they're going to do activities which is making them comfortable and which is predictable in nature. So usually at this age group, they will pick up activities which is predictable. Oh, I can control my phone time or iPad time. I can control what I want to eat because other things I can't control. So again, these are the things as an adult we need to look at. For adolescents, how we are seeing the effect is that there is a raised, there is lot of these adolescents are into addiction, internet addiction, screen time. They have unkept behavior. So, I have many parents coming to me who are saying he's not taking a bath for days. He's not eating well. He's just, eating a lot of junk, does not want to go and attend class, does not want to talk to their friends. Also, adolescents are understanding trauma, grief. They are understanding loss. And these are the kind of emotional up and down which is happening. And this is how we see in children, because children cannot come directly and tell us that, oh, this is how it's been affected. Their development, their development, holistic development is being affected. Their social has been affected. Their education has been affected. Their emotions has been affected. So how, as an adult, we have to be more open and perceptive to this is the catch.
Big task for parents. Dr. Sarkar, what are your views on this?
Actually, for last 1.5 years, I have to see patients daily, and some are ill, some are having for normal checkup, some coming for vaccination. But the commonest complaint I got from the parents that they are not mentally well, they are mentally stressed. Some are having problems. They have become nagging. They want to step out of the house. Some they get mentally depressed and have made themselves secluded themselves and have increased their screen time. So I started studying these patients, and it's my research work now because I will be submitting it at the end of the pandemic. So I've divided the age group into 3 groups. One below 5 years, the second one below from 6 years to 12 years, and the third group is from 12 years to 18 years. Below 5 years, so then I asked the parents that I will be calling you after 9:30 p.m. and I have a questionnaire session with them, and I put on the questions and they answered my questions. So I saw that the children between 0 to 5 years, usually they are not missing the school. They are very much attached to their parents. They are very much attached to their grandparents, and what they have problem because they are not interacting with other people, with the neighbors. Sometimes they have become very nagging, and they are becoming very demanding. So they are having problems. The parents are having problems in handling this age group. But I suggested them what you can do. You can talk with the other relatives or friends or the neighbors, anyone. But the phone should be, the screen should be at a distance. You just don't bring the screen close. This is one thing. So this age group is not a problem. The next age group, that means between 6 to 12 years, this age group, they watches TV regularly. They have the internet access and they know what the virus the damage caused by the virus, and they are very scared of the news they see in the TV, the death in the people. I have asked the parents that please explain them to maintain the etiquette of pandemic. If one maintains the etiquette, no one will be affected. This is number one. And the second thing is that the death they are seeing, it is only 2 to 3% of the total number of cases. So it's nothing to be scared that there can be any fatality in their house, because they are scared of losing the near and dear ones. And again, since they are having online classes, I suggested them, they please do one thing. After the one online class and after they complete their homework, please engage them in family activities. So if they get engaged, they helping their mother or their father, if they engage themselves in the family activities, they won't get bored and they won't feel lonely. And this age group is also missing the outdoor activities, playing games with their friends. So I asked them that if this is not possible when there is lockdown and when they are not meeting the friends, so the parents have to take the role of the friends and participate with them in their games. So they have to give this at least 1 hour time for playing with them. The next age group is 12 years to 18 years. In this age group, we have to be very, very careful because they are under change of the hormonal influences. So as they are having changes of the hormones, their mood stability is not there. So their mood is very much unstable. They are not only missing the schools, they are missing their friends, they are missing the playground, they are missing, even the boyfriends are missing the girlfriends and the girlfriends are missing the boyfriends. That is also a problem. So you have to support your child. You don't ask them about their personal matters. Don't ask them. They behave like adults. So please engage them in the household responsibilities. Give them the responsibility, take their advice, and if you feel the advice cannot be granted, so you explain them why you cannot take this advice or you cannot follow this advice. And if you talking regularly with your children, I don't think there will be a problem. And the children are the most adjusting people, you know, because I take care of the children. I know they adjust with me so much, even more than the adults they can adjust. But now I have made a group who are talking with the children, and I usually ask everyone to give the name of the children, drop the numbers in which we should make a call, and we are talking with the children. With the mobile, it should be at a distance, I have told you before, and we are put the loudspeaker on, and we are talking and asking what problems they are having, or just simple question. If they don't want to share the problems, maybe what activities they are doing. And you know, every children, if we ask them that we will be calling twice a week, they are so much keen to talk with us. They are asking and telling that they want to talk every day. And so the members who are doing this work, they are so much engrossed with these children that we continue to work like this till the epidemic persists and we have a normal life. But I think if the parents cooperate with the children, it will be a better environment than before. And also ask the children to practice what is their passion, because they have got a lot of time now. When their schools will reopen, again there will be so much of pressure and children forget to practice their passion. So I will request them to kindle up their passion so they can have fun even staying at the house, at least a good mental health. If not very much, we couldn't make them very much happy, but still they should have a positive mental health and understand the situation.
Thank you, Doctor. On this note, I would like to ask you, my next question is, should we have any plans at home where before the school reopens, or I mean, what it should be like?
Yeah, before the school reopens, the parents should practice, have a mock drill at the house, because in the house we don't use mask, There is no social distancing. The parents are very close to the children. So when they go to school, they should be taught first about the hand hygiene, how to sanitize their hands. This is number one. Second, they should maintain social distancing. They can't engage themselves in physical activities. They cannot go to the playground. And the third thing is maintaining the mask, because the children, when they are together, what they can do, they start playing with the mask, they can exchange the mask. So this should be taught, that this is not this hygiene should not be followed, this etiquette should not be followed, and the proper pandemic norms should be followed, and it should be practiced in the house before. Another thing should be taken care of, all the staffs and the teachers should be vaccinated. The persons or the who are responsible for the transportation of these kids to the school, they must be vaccinated. The parents who are accompanying the children, they must be also be vaccinated. So if everyone is vaccinated, and even if the children are not vaccinated, then the chance of transmission and maintaining the norms, the chance of transmission will be much less.
Thank you. Doctor, what are the steps to be taken for these COVID affected children, irrespective of the age group?
COVID affected children, we ask the mother to monitor certain things. Because it's the COVID affected children are usually mildly symptomatic, or they have no symptoms. If they have no symptoms, there's nothing to be monitored. But if they are symptomatic, usually they suffer from fever. So the mother should monitor the temperature 2 hourly and make a chart. She should monitor the pulse rate and the oxygen saturation via the pulse oximeter, and it should be done 4 hourly, and a chart should be maintained. In case of very small children, the pulse oximeter is difficult to use because of their thin fingers, which doesn't fit into the pulse oximeter. Next, they should maintain the urine output to know whether the child is having proper hydration. And when they cannot monitor the pulse rate and oxygen saturation via the pulse oximeter, we teach them how to count the breathing rate, because there is a range according to the age, above which if the breathing rate goes, it is dangerous for the child. Below 2 months, the breathing rate should not be more than 60. From 2 months to 1 year, it should not be more than 50. And from 1 year to 5 years, it should not be more than 40. So they should count the breathing rate, and they should see whether their child is active. If the child is active and playful, nothing to worry. And if the child is feeling sleepy, drowsy, lying down or on bed all the time, then she should inform her doctor that the child is not feeling well. So these are the signs to be monitored.
Can one of the parents be around when the kid is affected?
Definitely, even if the kid is positive, the children who are smaller in age, they should be taken care of by a caregiver or the mother. Now, even if the mother is negative and the kid is positive, the mother should wear a mask and take care of her child. If the child is older one, then he can stay in isolation, and mother can monitor from outside, because that child they are like adults, because the adolescents, they are like adults, they can take care of themselves. So they should be monitored. But the one thing should be remembered for these children, they sometimes feel mentally very, very much depressed. COVID children, when isolated, they feel very much depressed. So I have told you earlier that I have made a group. I have told them to talk with them what problem they are having, and if they want anything to discuss, so they can discuss with them. So these members, I have made a group, and these members are interacting with them regularly, because staying in isolation from 14 to 17 days is a tough job for this age group.
Yeah, it's like a torture. I mean,
Definitely,
one room
definitely.
for over 2 weeks. And ma'am, what is the kind of treatment policy we have in place for these kids as far as the virus is concerned?
Yeah, for COVID virus, it's like non-COVID virus. We don't give any medicine. For children, we always stay away from giving medicines. What we do, we ask the mother to monitor the signs and symptoms, and after they convey us the signs and symptoms, we determine whether they are staying in the mild illness, or they are in the group of moderate illness, or they are severe in the severe group. If they are in the moderate group, we hospitalize them. And regarding treatment, we don't give any medicine. Only for fever, we give paracetamol. If the child is vomiting, we give an antiemetic. If the child is having loose motion, we give probiotics and oral rehydration solution. We supplement with vitamins and vitamin D3 sometimes, and with zinc is given when there is loose motion. So this is the thing. Only the treatment policy is not like adults. As the ICMR guided for the adults, that ivermectin should be given, doxycycline should be given. No antibiotic should be given to the child, because it's a viral fever, and it has all this medicine has no effect on the virus, and it can damage the child organs. So we don't recommend any treatment except symptomatic treatment.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. On this note, Dr. Sarkar, I wanted to know what are the kind of cases you're getting post-COVID as far as kids are concerned?
Post-COVID complications, regarding post-COVID complication, I would rather say it's very rare, but still we alert the mothers, because it's not like adults. They have multi-system involvement in the post-COVID period, and it can occur till 2 months. So we ask the COVID positive children, mother of the children who are COVID positive, to be careful for the next 2 months. The multi-system inflammatory syndrome usually presents with high fever, more than 102 to 103 degree Fahrenheit, and it persisting for more than 3 days. They have red eyes without any secretion. They can have leg glands, swollen leg glands. They can have rash in the skin. Their tongue and lips are very red, and it looks like strawberry. So we made the term. The term is said strawberry tongue. And they can have pain in the fingertips, in the toes, followed by peeling of the skin. They can also have cardiac complication. In this syndrome, usually multi-organ damage occurs. There is involvement of the brain, there is involvement of the heart, lungs, and kidney. So the term is multi-system inflammatory syndrome. If it's diagnosed and treated at the right time, mostly the patients are hospitalized. All the patients will recover. There will be no case fatality. But if you neglect and you think, oh, it's a viral fever, let me give paracetamol, it will go down. If you neglect, it can be fatal, and we can lose the child.
This is scary. But even adults have done that, I believe. I mean, some people took it very lightly, and then they ended up at the ventilation. I mean, they were on ventilation. Hemanti, would you like to add to this? I mean, have you been receiving cases, calls, on mental health of kids post-COVID or recovering from COVID?
I have mostly, so people don't come to me for COVID issues or that. So
yeah, I mean parents, the mental part of it post-COVID, perhaps.
Yeah. So they don't come to me with understanding that this is because of COVID or something like that. But what I have seen is that overall, now certain issues are coming, which is something like, I have cases where 11-year-old, 12-year-olds have huge anxiety issues, and they have a lot of obsessive compulsive behaviors at home. They are addicted to internet chatting. There is a definite deficit in social and language skills. Children sometimes don't want to go out, and they are avoiding people. They also are, there was certain social etiquette which we followed, which children are not doing. There is a lot of, I have a lot of challenges about obesity and unhealthy eating habits. Food has become a huge issue because children have developed, they have become fussy about food. There is also poor appetite. Lot of behavioral issues have come, which was not there. So when parents are coming to me, it's not, they are not aware that this has been, increased because they're home for the last 1.5 years. But these issues have suddenly come up very, very prominently for me. And right now I'm primarily working on parenting. Of course, I am working with children, but I am also working with parents. And there are certain things which I am just, before even coming to a conclusion of, let's work with the child and giving a counseling session. More than that, I am working with the parents to help them understand, to listen to their heart. Actually, as a parent, you know what's happening, what's happening to your child, you know it intuitively. And what I say to the parent, to the mother, is that you listen from the heart. Don't just logically talk to him that, oh, what happened to you? But I gave you this. But instead of this reasoning to and fro, listen to the child from your heart. You would get an answer. You would see certain things which will help you to guide you. And again, what are we feeding them? As a parent, we have to be very sure of what is the brain diet we are giving. How much information is required, how much information is not required, which books are they reading, what websites they are looking at, what are the kind of friends they are talking to. We have to be alert and aware, because these are all feeding in the mind. And of course, at adolescent, there are different issues. Before adolescent, there are different issues, because all the children are on the screen. And as a parent, we have taken a roundabout. Earlier, in February 2020, we started saying no to screen, minimum screen. And then from March 2020, we started saying school is on screen, friends are on screen, birthdays on screen, classes are on screen, everything is on screen. So we have actually changed it. You have to take that as a responsibility, that we have given them this platform. And now it's our responsibility to maintain it and to, kind of evaluate how much or how much not. So that is important. We have to validate the emotions of the child. How can I help you? How can I make you feel better? What should I do which will make you feel better? If I sit with you for half an hour in the morning, will that make you feel better? If I eat with you every day, will that make you feel better? Talk to them. Children who have the language, children who are at an age who can talk to you, talk to them. Because that is going to give you a real answer, because they are feeling disconnected with parents. I have many adolescents coming between the age 11 and 16 who are disconnected with their parents. They don't want to see their face. They don't want to listen to them. They want to talk to somebody unknown. They have this keenness that I don't want to talk to my parents. I don't want to talk to my mother, to my father. I want to talk to somebody unknown. So they are into chatting. So I have boys and girls who are into chatting and talking and discussing their emotions. That means they feel they're unheard from their parents. Maybe the parents are not feeling the same, but you have to understand it's both. I'm not blaming the parent or the child. Parent is overburdened by many things. Similarly, the child is also overburdened by many disbalances which has happened in their life. So we have to, as a parent, create and evaluate how much or how much less. So, yeah.
Thank you, Hemanti. Now I turn to Sanchari. I think when we were discussing about the probable questions, we discussed about the sleep cycle of kids,
Yes.
Especially teenagers.
Yes.
This, I believe, is affecting their metabolism, resulting in major adjustment issues. What do you think we can do? A discussion helps, as Hemanti said, or how does it work?
See, what is happening is at least my teenager, he's completely stopped following the normal cycle that used to be there. Like go to sleep around the 10:30, 11, get up at 6:30 in the morning. He now tends to go to sleep around 5:30 in the morning. So now, see, if I tell you the last whole week, the schools have started. Class 11 in Delhi has started. So he's attending his classes in the morning. Then he has his tutorials that go on online. Now there's a pile of homework, and there is football going on live on television in the night. So he has to finish his tuition homework. He has to watch football. After all this, it's like a 2:30 or a 3. Then they start watching either a Netflix, some series on Netflix, or he has to watch YouTube. And then he starts doing his homework for the next day, which is around a 3:30, not earlier than a 2:30 any day. It's a 2:30 a.m., mind you. And it goes on till 4:30 or 5. Then there's munching that happens, a packet of Lays or some cake or whatever is available in the kitchen. He would hunt for it and eat, and then go to sleep at a 5:30. Get up at 1:30 or 2, which is also an ordeal. So every day he is missing out on his breakfast. And as parents, we fear that he would be in a complete topsy-turvy situation. The metabolism goes for a complete toss. Every single day, if a child of 16 is not having his breakfast, it's scary. But honestly, I don't have a way to handle it. There's no solution to this right now.
Doctor, what is your take on that? Do you think in the longer run we could have issues, or this is just temporary and we can just live with it?
Regarding the child, because there will be some issues, because we have seen when we have a summer holiday for 1 month, and then again getting the child back at school, getting them to the routine, getting them to the studies regularly. So it's a problem. And now they are having a summer vacation for 1.5 years, and it will continue maybe for 2 years. Then how to get them back again to school? And the problem will occur more in the special children, because the special children, once they are adopted to a situation, is very difficult for them to give another situation. So we ask the parents that not only you do the online class, but you also make interaction with the friends and teachers or someone, a third person, so that they can just talk with each other and tell their problems, or not even problems, just pass a good time with them. So we ask the parents to do all these things. But regarding the special children, I will tell the mother, because usually we have two groups of special children who are in special schools. That is, one is the autistic group and another is the hyperactive group. The autistic group, they have some repetitive problems. They go on asking questions. They have repetitive behaviors. So we ask the parents, when they have asked you a repetitive question, please do answer their question without getting irritated. And when they have a repetitive behavior, you please add an element to it, so that it becomes interesting and interactive with the child. Again, for the hyperactive one, if I give you an example, I think it will make you understand better. Suppose that autistic child is moving a car to and fro, and you ask the parent to make a cardboard slope and to drive the car from the top of the cardboard and let it slope down. So it makes the child more interactive, more happy to see this. Again, for the hyperactive child who is very energetic, you see that the even after the homework done, even after the task done, they have lot of energy to do the work. So you keep a time for physical exercise for them. If possible, participate with them and also engage them in easy to do work. That means you just ask them to filling the water bottles, you ask them to water the plants. I think it will be difficult when the school will open to get back the child to school and to the routine. But another thing it will occur, to interact with the friends and with other persons I think they will be much more happier than staying at home and stuck and confined in a single room or confined with the parents. So that is also a positive point is there, but still the parents should be very careful. And another thing they should take care of, they shouldn't have any complaint whether the child is not getting good marks or not, the child is not progressing, because progress in this pandemic is very difficult. Only you think that maintain the child daily activities, maintain his daily routine like a school, as if that the child school has started, that there is a tiffin time, then there is a the school ends, so after the school you give her food and then you start.
I think Dr. Sarkar
To
is,
the
yeah.
to the proper routine they were used to before pandemic.
Hemanti, your views on this?
Specifically, you want me to talk about special need, or you want me to talk about parent intervention? What is it that you want me to?
As I mean, from the perspective of parents of special need children.
Okay, so I have my work is primarily to work with special needs. So we provide therapeutic intervention like occupational therapy, language and speech, special education to special needs children. So now, of course, children who were stuck at home, we were trying to do online sessions, but it is not. I mean, sometimes because it kind of burdens the parents more, because when we are doing online session with a special need parent, with a special need child, then the parent has to engage the child more, because the child will just leave the screen and go away. So it was more of parent training which we did when we were doing online sessions. And now when we are open, so we are doing one-on-one sessions with the child. But with special need children, I would say that for them, their body needs have, are more than actually understanding what happened. So very young children are not aware of what happened, but their body needs were disrupted. They were getting more screen because both the parents were working, and they were not, I mean, some of the children who were not doing school or were in preschool were not attending it properly. So it ended with children watching TV and YouTube for 7 to 8 hours. I have parents who have told me that. So once that has happened, of course, when the child then comes, suddenly the parent realizes that, I'm giving a child a TV for 7 to 8 hours and then I remove it, the child will automatically show certain behavior. So this is one of the very important things which I have seen with special need, because parents want them to be contained in a space. When I want my child to sit in a space and not move around and not make noise, because both the parents are taking their individual offices. So I want the child to be in one place. What do I do? The only way the child is going to sit is I put on the TV, they're going to sit. With children who have difficulties or children who have other issues in their body, they will get restless. Yes, when you put on the TV and you put on the video game or you put on something that is so engaging and visually it is so exciting, they're going to sit at a place, but its effect is coming. I mean, we can see the effect in many folds. So, I think all the work is coming right now because of the pandemic. It is coming to the parent. Unfortunately, it is coming to the parent. And no matter what, we would still continuously say that even if you get 1 hour, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the night, you can spend time with your child, because that is essential right now. Children who are not able to take sessions and are at home, we provide them with some kind of home plan, which they are constantly doing. And then we are meeting them every week to see if you're able to do it any time of the day. You can do it while the child is, just playing. You can just, whenever you have a time as a parent. So absolutely. I mean, with special needs, things are many, it's much difficult.
So on challenges of a working parent, Pallavi, why don't you share the challenges you faced during these 15 months or you're continuing to face?
Yeah, so when the pandemic started last March, and to all of us, this was the first time experience. We never had any exposure or any understanding of what the consequences would be. So when the Janata curfew started, was announced, I remember in the month of March 2020, I was still in my maternity break, and my daughter was only 3 months old, and the curfew had started, the lockdown had started, and I had actually voluntarily joined back to work full time. I remember I proposed that I will join back because as part of the leadership team, it became my professional commitment to be along with my employees during that pandemic situation, because being a company where a large part of my employees were on the field who were doing sales job, this was a very common impact. It was impacting them very heavily. A lot of our employees got impacted with COVID, hospitalization, and everything came in. And it was all of a sudden, there was huge chaos at my professional front. But having said that, at home, no, I was still nursing my child who was just about 3-4 months, and my elder one's school was closed because of summer vacation. So it was extremely demanding at home. So what happened was that as a parent, as a mother, my time was stretched, because along with managing both the kids, I was also managing house chores. I was managing professional commitments. I was also kind of attending my kid, whose online classes eventually started after a few months. So again, I will repeat what we did, what I said sometime back. As me and my husband decided that the best thing would be to kind of step in whenever possible to help each other to complete our professional commitments, which we did, and also share responsibility. So that is something which we did very heavily, because we didn't have any help. So as a nuclear family, where most of us these days are youngsters who are staying away from their parents, and we are all alone and without any help. So that is the best we could do when we shared responsibilities, and we again made a schedule or a routine for our kids. So ideally, what happened for those initial, I remember the first 6 to 7 months was extremely difficult, because we were kind of locked up at home and doing everything on our own. And the apart the so post only when the kids slept is when we started completing our professional commitments mostly. So that means that our days were stretched. So we were really stretching ourselves beyond our regular sleeping time, which was also impacting our health. So like how we are all talking about how kids got impacted during this whole pandemic last 1.5 years, it is also the parents who took a lot of this whole pandemic took a lot of energy out of us. I mean, while the but the other side, of course, is the positive thing which I take away from this pandemic is, this is one-time opportunity when we as a family could spend time with the kids. You tell me any other time, especially for working parents, who could actually have a family time together along with the kids at home. It wouldn't have been possible. And for me personally, I think it was a blessing in disguise, because having spending time with my newborn kid for such a long period of time, it wouldn't have been possible if otherwise. So I think overall, the last 15 months was a mixed of experience for me. It was very difficult managing everything, but because you know what, the first few months we didn't know what is going to happen, what is going to be lockdown, how will things happen, how will we kind of manage stuff. We didn't know during the first wave, but by the time the second wave came a few months back, we were already prepared. We knew what is going to happen, how things will manage, what to expect. The kids had also kind of grown up, and they were also kind of accustomed to the situation to a certain extent. I won't say totally, but at least we learned from our experiences from the first wave. Managing the kids were a little more easier now. But overall, I think as a parent, as a working parent, professional commitments, the demand, the expectations from it is huge, and coping up both expectations from your kids and from your professional commitment has actually drawn a lot of energy out of me.
From most of us.
Yes.
So in this context, do you think if your workplace gives you the option of working from home for the next few years or few months, I mean, I don't know when this is going to get over, would you like to opt for that, or you would want to go back to work like physically?
See, I think, Surita, it's a factor of a lot of things. So, for example, if my workplace is, of course, giving me an option to work from home, I will take it up, because the support system to ensure for me to go to work carefree and without any tension will not be in place, because the daycares are closed still, the schools are closed still. So with no support of who will kind of give a good, who will take care of my kids, I will not be able to kind of physically go back to work. So I think that is true for all working parents. If our the system supports for working parents, definitely I would love to go back to work, because there is a different charm in going back to office and working from your workplace, meeting your colleagues and kind of interacting with them. But having said that, if we don't have have the other things in place, where people like doctor said, that if the schools are opening, they have to open up with all precaution of all the teachers, staff, everybody getting vaccinated, and also monitoring the behavior of kids at school. Also the teacher to child ratio, most of our schools, our classrooms are jam packed with number of students. There is no teacher to student ratio. So when we are all talking about social distancing and all talking about spacing out sitting, how do you manage that at school level? So they have to think through all those at schools. And with the upcoming third wave, which we are talking about, the Delta virus, the children not yet being vaccinated, although the parents are vaccinated, but they are more prone to get affected. With all these things around, I am not very confident of kind of going back to work or sending my child to school if those things are not taken care of.
Doctor, on this note, considering that the kids are unable to take up outdoor activities, is there any tip for these mothers, or us, I would say?
Yeah, I already have told the mothers what to do and what not to do. But usually I will tell that it is divided into age groups, because below 5 years, the children are always clinging to the mother or to the grandparents. So with them, there is no problem. But between 6 years to 12 years, you have to talk to them, explain them what is happening in the outside world. Don't get scared. And sometimes they demand that they want to go outside. You have to explain the same thing, that the danger of the virus, and if they step outside, what complication can occur. And above 12 years, you have to act like a friend. You have to ask them what they want to decide or what they are thinking. Because if you don't talk with them like a friend, they won't open up. And likewise, we were discussing that they want to meet, even talk with a stranger rather than opening up with the parents. But if the parents act like friends and talk with them, and also take care of their decision, that means you honor their decision. Don't tell that you don't know anything, we are the adults, we going to decide in the family. No, you give them importance and ask them what they are thinking about a certain situation, and even ask them to handle the situation in the house. I think the interaction will with good interaction, everything we can solve the problems, and everything will come to normal once the pandemic is over. So we are hoping for the best. Everyone should take the vaccination, and if the vaccination is done, we can see that the live football that is going in the stadium, nobody is wearing a mask. So the Delta variant has come. There are thousands of cases in UK and the death rate is so little. And another thing I am telling you, the children doesn't have any comorbidity. That means they are not suffering from heart disease, chronic lung disease, chronic diabetes. Some children have problems.
Let me see.
If we leave aside that only those children, but mostly the children, they are not suffering from chronic disease. So they don't have comorbidity. So the case fatality will be much less. So we are hoping for the best, and we are hoping that the vaccine should arrive soon for the kids. And once they are vaccinated, we will be free to move, definitely with the mask on.
Thank you, Doctor. So that kind of brings us to the end of the session. Thank you all for all your inputs. They were really useful. Now I have a special guest before we take up the questions from the audience. Can we have him join here, or he's missing? Saurabh, has he joined?
So I'm trying to connect him. Yeah, he just joined.
Okay. We need to.
Hi, Abhitosh.
Sure, it says connecting to audio.
Yes.
Abhitosh, can you hear us?
Yeah, you, but I can, but my video
Yeah,
is
he is
on.
audible now.
Yeah, but we want to see you.
What in the world? Somehow the video is not working.
Oh, I see, I see. So how are you? We can do it without the video.
I am fine. I just.
How old are you?
Now I tell you that only when it comes.
Oh, no, you can do it without the video. It's okay. We can hear you. Do you want to share your views about this pandemic? Do you have any comments to make? Any views you wish to share with us?
I do like to.
Please do.
I bet I'm going to video.
Can you say something? We are waiting.
I don't like this pandemic. It's just unfeasible.
So is it the screen which is distracting you?
Yeah, it is the screen.
Okay, why don't you answer the question? How have you been spending your time during the lockdown? Everyone wants to know.
By building Legos, reading books, and eating, and I terribly miss my friends. So although I have a jolly good time.
Oh, you are terribly missing your
Yeah,
friends. What about screen time?
But I had a screen time. I miss so much. Sometimes I don't get it. But why in the world is my camera not working yet?
That's okay, Abhitosh. Thank you for joining us. So Abhitosh is a 6-year-old boy stuck at home like all others. We thought he'll be able to show us his face, but seems like he was having some problem. So now we'll take up the questions. There's one question I have here from Abhishek. Do you think that, I think this question is for Dr. Sharkar. Do you think that once the pandemic is over, children will be happy to go to school again and spend long hours there, or they'll behave otherwise? Doctor, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is a very good question because I have asked this question to many children and they have answered me back that they are waiting for the school to reopen. So they are missing their friends, they are missing the playgrounds, so they are missing all the activities. So I don't think that will be a problem, but it will be a problem in case of some children, especially who are the special children, because they are to be accustomed with the school routine and the school discipline. Only in that cases there will be some problem and it will take time to get them back to school. But otherwise, I don't think the children will have problem.
Surita, I will also add here.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, just adding to what doctor said, actually, when my son's new academic session started last month, their school on the first day asked them to make a wish list. Can you, all of you, please make your own wish list, some top 5 things that you would want to happen in the next 1 year. And you know, this was one thing which he wrote. Among the top 5 things, I think everything, most of them were around that he wanted to go back to school, he wanted to meet friends at his school, he wanted to play with his friends in the school playground. So that clearly, I mean, says that in a youngster like him, who is between the age group of say 6 to 12 years, they are looking forward to kind of go back to school and having their me time away from, like, at school with their friends, with their teachers. You know, that is something they're really looking forward to.
Hemanti, would you like to add to this?
I absolutely feel the same. Children need to go out of their home because there is a confusion of, you know, parents in the home working. Now, I mean, by this time they're used to it, but the first time children were not able to understand that I can see my mother, I can see my father, but they are not, you know, spending time with me. So the concept of office for the younger ones was really difficult. But if like the school starts, and I mean, things get back to normal, it's good for all of us. I mean, it is mentally good for all of us to go back to our own routine. The child needs his holistic development. The child needs his friends, needs his playground. That is essential. I mean, a big chunk of development is being missed because they're at home. So, of course, that's important.
Okay, thank you, Hemanti. I have another question for Doctor and you. So this is from Miss Molly Das. She's a teacher. She's a senior faculty of English, Cambridge International School, Kolkata. The outbreak of COVID and its manifestation into a global pandemic has turned death into a household name, as we are frequented by intermittent news of deaths of loved ones. My question in this context would be how to deal with death and repercussions as far as toddlers and pre-teens are concerned. That's a question.
Regarding the household death, yes, it's a really scary, especially with the teens, because they are going through a lot of changes, the hormonal changes, the physical changes, as I have already mentioned, and they are always they are suffering from this fear that they might lose someone. So only thing you have to, the parents have to be by side of the child and explain them the signs, because if we follow signs, the virus cannot harm us. So you have to convince them, you have to explain it to them, and once you can explain, I don't think it will be a problem.
I'll add here is for the younger child, the concept of death is still not very clear. That's why, you know, we frequently tell our children that, look, that person who's expired has become a star or has become a moon for very young child. So we need to, so for them to understanding that that person is become a star and is somewhere around us is important. So for toddlers, they really don't understand the concept of death, but if there is a closed one who is gone, so we need to tell them that they're around us. You can't see them, but they are around us. And you know, making up stories like they are, you know, you that star is your
someone who's not there. I mean, is okay for a toddler, but for an early teen, we need to address that person is no more. The child need to grieve. The child need to go through that whole procedure of how he would feel, and if possible, make a corner in the room where the child could grieve or have a picture around, could talk to that person if that person is a very close person. So if I'm talking about a child who's lost a parent, so or a grandparent, so we could have a corner in the room where we have a picture and the child is allowed to talk and grieve there. So that is for an early teen. But for a toddler, talking about death is difficult, and addressing it in a way that they're around us, they are seeing us, is more appropriate.
Thank you, Hemanti. So thank you, everyone. It was a lovely session. At least for me, it was very educational, I would say. Gathered a lot of things, especially Dr. Shorkar and Hemanti, because we are on the other side of the table all the time, like the mothers or the working parents. But we kind of gathered a lot of information today. And I think these little tips would actually help us practically, and we should be able to spread the word around. So over to Mrs. Day. She's the, yeah.
Good evening to all. On behalf of AIWC Regent Park Branch, I convey my thanks to all speakers who have kindly spared their valuable time in joining this webinar. In this pandemic situation, we all are confined to home, including children and students. Effect of this confinement to children clearly detailed by Delhi-based child psychologist Hemanti Mangalam. Thanks to her detailed guidance. Thanks to Dr. Ognimitra Giri Shorkar, a renowned pediatrician, to share her knowledge and advice how to keep the children safe, busy during upcoming wave. Thanks to Pallavi Sengupta from Bangalore, who is working mother of 2 kids, for her advice how to keep the kids engaged. Thanks to Shanchari Basu from Delhi for sharing her emotional experience of children. Thanks to Shurita Mojumdar, a practicing lawyer, to act as moderator of this program. Thanks to Saurabh, who is the technical host of this webinar, for giving us IT support. Thanks to Madhumita Mojumdar, Secretary of AIWC Regent Park Branch, for arranging this webinar. And thanks to all members and listeners who have joined this program to make it success. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having us.